Uh, there we are. All right, everybody. I will see you in about an hour. What we're talking about. Drifting away for a bit. All right. As we've always said, it is the first words which cement the link. It is these words that give the greatest obstacle to those beginning their practice of this style of mediumship. It is like pushing through plastic, where they need to allow the first words to come, to fully allow the rest of the words to come behind. And now we have the correct link. As we said last week, there will be a series of talks. We have 3 weeks until there is a slight break. And during the next 2 weeks, today and next week, we'll be talking about a particular topic. And it will not be I talking again, but I will do the introduction and also the healing list that we will have in a moment. It'll be another doing the conversation. Now, this conversation is based on many questions which have occurred over the last few weeks regarding those on a spiritual path. But we will come to that in a second. So let us begin with the healing list, if we can, please, Brandon.
Yes, great to hear from you, my friend. The names for today are Sonia, Paya, Teresa Neal, Lori P, Brad, Lori and John Mans, Roz, Lena and her family, Betty and David Essex, Chris and Howard Wielden, Evie Rose Johnston, Olivia Johnston, Howard, Chris, Alan, Liz, Angie, Rosa, Malata and Tim, Kelsey, Sandra and Mark, Katrina, Larry, Nancy and Ruben, Vicky Hodgson, Loretta, Michelle, and Francis Caputo. Thank you.
All will be held firmly within the heart of the Creator. Allow me to withdraw for a while. I'm rather enjoying this newfound speaking bit. It's been a little bit of a while break, and then now I'm in demand all of a sudden. I'm kind of like I might be doing my autograph about 20 times a day at the moment. What a wonderful thing that is, if only. Anyway, oh, Ardelia, you're here, love. Wonder Shirley Haugen. Do you remember that, love? I called you that, what, a couple of years ago, I think. Anyway, there you go. Just thought, I'm just letting you know, I ain't forgotten.
Thank you, Charlie.
Hope you haven't too, love. God bless you. Anyway, nice to speak a little bit of German once in a while. It's a bit old-fashioned German, I think, love, isn't it? Anyway, let's get going. Look, lots of questions were asked over the last couple of weeks about people saying, what's going on here then? Where are we? What's happening? What's going on with this experience I'm having? And I thought of what would be best to do if we go through a whole list of different experiences people can have during their awakening process. Now, it might seem rather basic, but the point is that you will recognize some, you might recognize them all. But it doesn't mean you'll get them all, and it doesn't even mean you'll get any of them. Everybody's experience of connecting through to spirit is always slightly different. And this is because over the course of their past, their history, they do embody, if you like, within the mind, all sorts of experiences and beliefs. And of course, this needs to be cleansed away. And in cleaning this away, it drops away in different ways. So as a consequence, everybody's experience is differently. It also comes about in different orders. It may be greater in or lesser intensity. It may also be just an awakening of none of these experiences. Now, as I said, you will recognise, well, some, hopefully more than some of them. And it's quite important because this will answer some people's questions that they seem to be having recently. Anyway, so let's begin. I've got lots of them. All right, so the first one I want to say, during your awakening process or feeling the connection towards spirit or the spiritual self, or if you want to, you're beginning to walk the spiritual path, if that's the way you look at it, the very first thing is an increase in empathy and intuition. Now, as you begin to settle your mind, it is very natural for your mind to open up to many, many other things and to start to see and become aware of other things happening with many other people. So it's very natural for people to have an increase in their intuition. And it means that the mind is softening, the mind is starting to perceive other knowledge, the mind is accessing knowledge that is within and proving to some degree the connection between, well, some people. Now you think to yourself, well, that's all well and good. I might get to know, let's say, the wife and the kids a bit easier, but how do I get to know people on the other side of the world? Well, all of this is still the same process. You're becoming aware of the interconnectedness. And the interconnectedness comes with knowledge, because knowledge sits within both the soul and the spirit. And the knowledge we're talking about is, well, it starts off at a small degree and builds up to quite a large body of knowledge in terms of knowing anything and everything. You also begin to realize here that there is more empathy, that there is a relationship, there is an understanding of people. So you start to feel like you know them and can relate to them more. You relate to their problems. You stop seeing them as body and start seeing them more as something else, but maybe you don't know what else. And you feel the connection of people more. You feel drawn to people and people are more drawn to you. There is a feeling of safety within your energy and a feeling of connection. And it feels like when you truly meet a true empathic person, you could sit with their energy, not even say anything, but you could sit with their energy and you can tell them things. Tell them your secrets, if you like. This is all part of the process. Not only do you want to, or you do experience people telling you their problems, but you find it easier to tell your own. But you can find it very difficult to go to your innermost experiences where you hold the most pain. And you find it difficult, but now you are aware of it. You're aware that you will hold pain within your heart that you need to express or deal with or forgive, forget, whatever. And you will know that that is something that you have to do. So you see, the weaknesses you see in other hearts starts to give you the awareness of the weaknesses within your heart in this experience. So again, the light that you start to see internally is reflected externally for you to know it internally. So again, if you start to walk a path, all of a sudden a teacher appears. And that teacher is your light. And of course, the teacher may be a book or a group, or even a community, or maybe a religion. So you see, the external world is reflecting your internal world. And then you have to follow this light. So increasing intuition and also empathy always happens. This is the one which pretty much happens every time. Like 95% of the time people experience this. There is also the understanding that all life becomes sacred. The deeper you go into your spiritual path, the more and more true this becomes. You'll find that people right at the very beginning, they start to understand, see insects, see beauty in the smallest things. They may pick up an insect where they would have previously squashed it, and they throw it outside for a better life, if you know what I mean. And they, rather than just getting rid of it and killing it. Now, again, this happens quite naturally with people without them being consciously aware if they are doing this. They may see beauty in flowers and leaves and fruit. They may see the wonder of ants walking across the floor, the wonder of birds, how fish all gather together and swim in circles. And then they see beauty within a forest and trees, and they feel that everything seems so wonderful. Why do we want to damage or hurt or even criticize any of these beautiful things? Now you think this again is perfectly obvious, but you see, not everybody gets this experience, this part. Some people have a nature whereby they are used to running other parts of their life. So, for example, you may have a job where you need to kill animals or chop down trees or things. So you may not connect fully into what I'm saying with this one, but you will get the sacredness of life in other ways. Trees are a wonderful thing. But of course, every aspect of life is part of the wonderment. And you'll find it such a beautiful expression of your truth. So interestingly, again, you see this as a reflection of what really is inside of you. As the beauty is waking up inside of you, you see beauty in the external world, reminding you that the internal world has the beauty that is required. And eventually your mind loses the perception of what is the internal world and what is the external world. But anyway, that's really a lot deeper, and that comes later. You'll also find a resistance toward negativity. And you find people who get involved in, let's say, gossip or complaining, or always find problems in the world. People who always see something wrong. Those who look at issues and find out that there's something beyond it that's problematic, or always see that something is going to happen bad. You find resistance to this. But not only do you find resistance towards it, but you also awaken within you the desire to then do something about it. So the healing part of man starts now to be activated. The negativity, again, which is on the outside, is reflecting on the inside, which causes the heart to want to heal the outside, but it's their internal healing. The internal healing that is required. Here you can see it reflected about people who put obstacles in the way to any activity that should take place. People who say, I should meditate, but then fail to turn up. I should, let's say, attend a spiritual event. I should pray. I should connect to God, but just forget to do it. On their path, they get the signs of where they should go. Now, if you look at your path carefully, as we've said with each of these ones already, that you, by looking externally, what you see in the external world points you to the issues you have in your internal world. So if you see problems, you can bet your life there is a problem that is within you that you need to address or forgive or forget or move past. Maybe you're holding a judgment. Maybe you're holding a little bit of unforgiveness. Maybe you have pain that needs to be dealt with. You see, with all of this, there is another thing that happens, an increase in your consciousness. Your consciousness goes to a different depth, and you start to see the external world in a very, very different light. You see things happening in different ways. You're aware of these problems which are being seen outwards, and maybe I need to do something about them internally. Without this conscious awareness, you would just breeze through life and never ever see all these internal problems as your own. So again, you're raising your level of consciousness purely to yourself. You are waking up to the consciousness within you. That's a better phrase. And in doing that, then you become aware of more things. As I said, you're aware of beauty and you're aware of pain. You're aware of external information. You're aware of more love. Again, this is a very natural process. You'll find at times these people can also have spontaneous awakenings, meaning that they may also know many things. They may have some strange dreams, or they may, for no reason, be happy beyond measure or feel like they love everything. You see, you are connecting at a deeper level and you're coming more and more closer to your truth on the inside. So little bits of your truth start to pop to the surface. So again, you'll feel more love in your life. You feel more peace. There is a good way to judge your spiritual path, and which is how much peace is in your life. How peaceful are you? Are you quick to judge, quick to jump into anger? Or can you first of all stop and see? You may see somebody else being angry. And years ago, you might have first action is to also become angry yourself. And of course, this doesn't win any battles, does it? Just creates more anger, more problems. And problems which had to be dealt with. And here, when there's this happening, what is being damaged is the egoic self. All interactions still at this level are still very much about one ego meeting another ego. How well do our two egos fit together? If I say it's red and you say it's blue, then our egos are not going to be compatible. But with the spiritual path, you start to put up with people's differences in a different way. As I said, if they say it's red and you say it's blue, then so be it. That's okay. Doesn't mean we can't agree on 100 other things. So you become more tolerant of people. You want better communities to take place. You start less to see differences because everybody's different. Literally everybody is different. And if you see the difference, then you will see this to be true. But there's also something the same about everybody. Every human person has something the same. And then when you progress on, you see every animal and every bit of nature, every rock. The planet is the self, it's always the same. So initially you see difference, but eventually you see similarity. And then you see the universal of what is true underneath it. So everybody's very different in many different ways, not just their body shape, but also their belief systems and the way they interact with the world, their personality and issues they have to deal with. You either see that or you see the commonality. Of course, the commonality means that underneath it all, there is something that unites everything. Of course, that is the journey that you're undertaking, the journey of this awakening that takes place. Now, of course, now, not only do you want more community and more interconnectedness and a realization that there is interconnectedness, there is a rise in social issues, that you feel pain easier, the pain of things not being right, where you may still make a judgment. You make the judgment that this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing that, or we should be doing this. Now this again is very early on the spiritual path rather than very far into the path. People think, well, if I'm doing this, then I'm spiritual. I'm saying don't chop down that tree, then I am spiritual. Now there's all sorts of reasons why things have to happen in different ways. But when you're a long way into your path, you may accept the chopping down of the tree. You may accept that even though the body of tree is disappearing, the life still carries on. But there is a desire for increased compassion. Now, compassion is different to empathy, but compassion now is you feel the pain and want to alleviate the pain of others. And you can relate to it. You may want to then assist them in their journey. So again, the healer, which woke up earlier, now it stops embodying the pain of another. That's what an empath can do. I take the pain off you and put it onto me. The empath changes into a compassionate person. And here, they do not take the pain away. They help to alleviate the pain in the other. Otherwise, the pain just goes from one to another, doesn't it? So the compassionate person doesn't take it, but wants to do something about it. So the empath has to change into somebody that's compassionate. And this is not always seen, and this is not always understood. You see, at different paths or different awakening, people can think, well, there we go, I've done it now. I'm on my path, I've made it, I'm empathic. But of course, there is more to go. And here again, the empath changes into someone that's compassionate. They are two different things, but they look very similar, and the two words can be interconfused. Interconfused? Is that even a phrase? It is a Charlieism. Anyway, they can be confused between what is needing to be done. So an empath, as I said, may take the problem away, but the compassionate person will be sitting with that person to help and guide them to solve the problem themselves. So the empath would like to tell somebody, don't worry, there is light. But the compassionate person will say, let me help you find your light. So you can see there is a difference where an empath changes into a compassionate person. And that's quite vital along the path. And now, after even this time, the compassionate person still has the understanding of the light that exists beyond the pain in the physical form. So hence the need to guide somebody here. So somebody is truly compassionate will also have the way of the bodhisattva, the way of, let's call it the angel, if you want to use that word, somebody who wants to assist others. You'll find also that people have a desire to tell the truth more, no matter the pain that can come with telling the truth. They find people's negativity in falsehood to become more challenging and more difficult. And you may even find here people say to themselves, why can't you just tell the truth? But of course, that's not always easy for people. It's not always easy to say that I am in pain, I am having difficulty, I need help. And those people need to cover it over a little bit. It's not difficult to get. But the people seeking or expressing truth don't always see that, because they feel that they always have to say the truth, and the negativity in others becomes more challenging to them, more difficult to see, difficult to accept. As a consequence, then they can fall backwards a bit here. People can desire the truth so much that it can give them more separation rather than more unity. And again, this can be that this person or the person in this part of this process needs to understand there's something deeper and more important than the truth. And that, of course, is the way of perhaps compassion or love or empathy, depending. So even though the truth is a spiritual quality, it does not mean that it is necessarily the end quality, the biggest, the best. I always tell the truth. Truth must be in everything. Sometimes things need to be done in a different way. And again, if you follow the mind decision on this, the people would say, well, I'm going to lose some karma points if I say what's not true. Well, that may be the case. But you'll also perhaps, again, depending on the incident, gain some karma points by loving another person. I'm sure I've told you the story before, but let me give you an example. So a married couple walking down by the lake, and they're walking down the lake, and there is a sound, and it's a sound of a chicken, cluck, cluck, cluck. And one of them says to the other one, it doesn't matter which way round it is, he says, do you hear that duck? And the other one said, no, it's a chicken. No, it's a duck. No, it's a chicken. And they walked for the next few hundred meters saying, it's a duck, it's a chicken. And one day, or a little bit further on, the one looks at the other and they see tears in their eyes. They can see that there's pain in this. And then say, you're right, it was a duck. You see, there's love in action, isn't there? Even though it's not the truth. Sometimes you can look at your partner or the person there and love them. On the inside, you know whether it's a chicken or a duck. But you can love that other person. So you see what I'm saying here is you can see that love can be more important than the truth. Anyway, I get dissected or even detracted or whatever the word is, distracted, there we are, away from where I'm supposed to be. But you understand this concept, I hope, by now. Now here also there is greater and greater desire for not being involved in too many things. There is the withdrawal from life tends to happen. And when I say life, the external world, which now seems very contradictory in that there seems to be a need to go heal the world, and somewhere during this process, they start to step back from the world. And they find now that they can spend more time in solidarity by themselves, and they can spend more time just gently working with themselves, feeling what's going on the inside. The external world becomes less and less satisfactory. Of course, this person still needs to go into the town and buy some food and come back into the forest. But they need to then sit internally and deal with life. But they know they cannot do this forever. Even when they find their spiritual self, the oneness, if you want, underneath it all, their spirit, if you prefer, the internal or eternal love or unconditional love, when they find this, then they think, oh, this is wonderful, I like it, and I can sit in this for a while. But then they have to go back into the world to give it away to others. They have to manifest this unconditionally. So finding here yourself is still only part of the battle. They then need to go and express it and give it away to other people. The clarity of the mind has now changed, and the clarity of the mind is very different. The experiences which are seen, felt, and heard are seen as an internal experience, not an external experience. And of course, this takes some evolution and understanding about the meaning of life and the way it all fits together. So now you want to make a difference to the world because you know you are making an expression of yourself. So again, working compassionately seems to drive you forever forward. It seems to be the truth. Even though that person does not understand that they are perfect and complete on the inside, they have to deal with their issues on the external, and you come along to do both at the same time. You heal others by being with others. Ironically, you will heal and work with others without saying words. Or your desire to speak becomes lessened. Nothing then exceeds your internal world. And you do not want to rock your inner peace. You do not want to change all this internal environment for the confusion externally. But at the same time, you want to give others the peace that you have. So now then, you see the problem, but all of a sudden you see the clarity underneath the problem. So let's say somebody has a problem. Let's say they lose their job. You see this as just a part of the play. You see this just part of the situation the way it is. And eventually you have no desire to change it. Your compassion disappears. It may resurface at its appropriate time, but you can just sit and be with the world. So you can find people now just wanting to sit in quiet and share their solitude. Seems a strange thing to say, share solitude. But by doing this, then you think that you are helping others in their world. You must have at some time felt a deep connection with somebody where you could sit and not necessarily feel the need to talk, yet also feel very connected to that person. Of course, this is the way this is. Now again, your internal voice is now calling to you, and you will make decisions based on what needs to be happening internally and what you need to do externally. Internally first now. And internally you will be taken on a journey, and you may decide to go to far off places or go to sit in strange places or temples, or even just to sit and wait for somebody to turn up, knowing that they are arriving and waiting or looking for you. But you know not why. But you trust that more than you trust your external senses. Anyway, that will pick up no end for many, many people. There is a feeling right now that the mind is never going to satisfy you. The mind is never going to take you to where you want to go. Is it knowing that your mind has limited knowledge, can only hold, let us say, a glass full, yet there's more beyond it. There is an awakening to the sense of being, just being. And internally you feel the being of everything. You feel like there is a being here, which is something far more than you. Ironically, it's you, and yet it is more than you. And you feel this inside, and you know whatever that is. And you may not have a name for it, but whatever that is more truthful than whatever the external world is. You desire to sit more and more into this nature of being. Being is full of potential. It's full of where all creation can come out of. It may be pure silence and stillness, yet it has the ability to act, the ability to create, the ability to destroy. But this means more to you than anything externally, the sense of being. Now, if you think you find this sense of being, and it exists obviously within every one of them, then you'll find that this gives you a point where nothing needs to change. And in fact, nothing does change. It only changes when you look outwards, away from being, not looking inwards into being. You can't fully grasp what being means until you get to it. But if you try to understand it, it becomes difficult to describe, and it becomes very hard to relay it to anybody. The mind only has a vocabulary of a few thousand words, yet it would need much, much more. And this here, this sense of being, you can all feel right now. You think you can't feel it. But there is like a certain solidity, if you want. Again, solidity is not really the right word, but there is within you this sense of self, sense that I am here. Of course, eventually the here disappears as well. But this is available internally if you just look internally. It's only those which go a little bit further than most get to this point. A feeling of presence, the feeling of I am here, wherever here is, the feeling that the external world changes, that there is something solid that just watches the breeze run by. It's like sitting in, when you find it's like sitting watching a movie where it's on 10 times its normal speed. And it just, everything goes past you very, very quickly, yet you are undisturbed. If you get to this point, if you can feel this inside you now, if you can understand that this is where it's at, if your mind is being used, you do not understand it. Your mind has to drift away. It is not satisfied with a description. It is red or blue or black or green. It is tall, it is short, it is broad, it is narrow. It's nothing like that. You can't put it in a box, but mind wants to put everything in a box. Incomprehensible, undescribable. Yet it holds the potential for every possible event. Now you all get an indication of that on this path. Maybe not in the first few days of the path, but you all get an indication of that being there within you. Of course, you still may choose to try and solve your external world or your mental problems. But there is a feeling of that presence being there. So even if you were to occur what could be the greatest disaster, the stronger connection you have to your being or beingness, the less that disaster matters. You could lose all your money, all your assets, all that you love. You could lose your health. You could lose your life. But all you want is that connection. That is what is calling you back to it. If you want to change the word of being into God, creator, consciousness, spirit, well, you're kind of getting there-ish, but nowhere near at the same time with those words. That is the sense of self which you cannot get away from. And it was said just recently, it's closer than your breath. Anyway, you'll get there when you see it. But that's the path you're going to, which you just understand you've already got. Anyway, look, let's carry on a little bit further. So the path of all these awakening comes down to the fundamental connection of being the being, if you know what I mean. And it is the dropping away of all these external things which seem to satisfy you, seem to need to be understood, seem to need to be dealt with, seem to need to be clarified. But none of them will ever get you to that true point of understanding, but they feel like they're on the path. Now, there's loads more of these, which I'm going to cover quite a few more next time. These are some of the positive side of things, but you can have some negative. And it's all relative, of course, positive and negative. But you can have some negative awakening experiences or what perceived to be negative. And I'm going to talk about them next week. So there's quite a few of them as well. I would say that you kind of got half and half, 10 of one and 10 of another, roughly. And you just be aware that no path is the same, no two paths. So when you're sitting with someone, and if you are a teacher, or you want to teach, or you want to guide somebody, the important bit is understanding, relating to where they are, but to keep them walking in the early days. Once they get so far through their path, then they have no inclination to stop. And I think you can all get this to some degree. You could stop your spiritual path, but you really can't stop your spiritual path, if you know what I mean. You can if you want, but you can't if you try. I'm sure you understand. So you must help them to get to that point. That's the point where most people drop away. Now, some of these experiences, as I've said, are very natural. They don't all occur, and they don't all occur in any order. So you can have a very strong awakening on day one and then never experience it for let's say, year 20 when it comes back again. So they don't necessarily follow an order or a pattern, because they have to deal with the human self and the human mind. Always come back to the love. And you think, well, that's a bit, what is it? It's a bit wishy-washy to always come back to the love. But you see, it is the love which is the glue which pulls two things into one. So it is love that pulls everything back together. It is love which is the contraction. It is the egoic mind which is the expansion. So you see, the ego is required because it gives you a sense of wanting to move forward, to develop. But it's very strong in different parts of the life. Eventually, the love has to be the driving factor. And for true love to occur, it has to be what is best for the other, or what is best for the relationship, not what is best for I. Anyway, could keep going with that for a fair bit. More to talk about with that. Look, I'm going to talk about the negative bits next time, all right? I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to let him come back and say a few words. All right, everybody, ta-ra, see you later. The talk today and the talk next week are based on the confusions and desire for clarity that people face as they walk their path, as they wish to understand. Is this natural? What is occurring? What should I do? Maybe where should I go? So we give you this as a point of clarification. Each topic within each part of the talk could be spoke about in their own right, of course. We'll add more to it next week. If you would like more people on the healing list, please send their name. Until next week, let peace be within your heart.